Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders.
I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
So, I don't know if you knew this about the DSM-5, but part of the diagnoses process is that you have a problem with the condition. Not like the problem with the condition, like, hey, I don't want to have that condition. Like, the condition brings about problems in your personal life, work life, any part of your life. And I think that's the most ironic with narcissism. Because, like, isn't the whole point is to not know, like, you be so egocentric that you don't know you're bothering other people with your narcissism? Yeah. Well, I guess it makes more sense if it's like I'm having problems with anyone and I don't know. And I guess that considers, like, you admit there's a problem. You see there's a problem, and you might be too self-centered to realize you're the problem, you know? I guess that's a thing. But what is this? Okay. Thought it was a rat poop. Sorry, guys. False alarm. It's just a little cotton ball thing. That's weird. Maybe I'll cut that out. I don't know. But yeah. So if you haven't watched the first video, please, you got to watch the first one at least. I know this is the second one, but I'm always gonna refer back to the first one. You don't have to watch them in order. But it just, one, it makes more sense. Second, it gives context of why I'm doing what I'm doing, I guess. This is also the fourth time I'm trying to do this specific episode. Well, I mean, this is the first, into the narrative and trying to break that down and expound on how that could be served for the greater purpose and, greater population. But, it's because the narrative, there's details that I want to say, but details would give away people and this and that. And so it's such a fine line. And so this fourth time I'm trying this. So let's see if this one's the one, But essentially, okay, I've learned, I just got to be quick with my background. Background essentially is, I gotta first say, right? Me and my parents are fantastic. Okay. We've come to see each other respectfully, I guess. I think that if I were in their shoes with what they knew, what they had to do in terms of work and this and that, I don't think I would have done better than them, honestly. So I have that respect for them, understand them, and that helps kind of understand what I went through, So that's for somebody out there. I mean, this story isn't so much about them, but I have to bring up like the background of like how I was raised, and it just seemed, it was like, if I had to like summarize, it was like having a drill sergeant of a dad and a mom who tried to keep the peace no matter how wild things got, and I mean that in terms of like, or no matter what it took to have peace in the house, and so you put those two things together, you have a lot of negligence, denial, like demanding, controlling, all that put together. But if I had a kid like me, I would know what to do. You know what I mean? And we'll get into that. So that's kind of my background. I was this I was like this perfect little kid, I didn't want to be a burden on anyone's life. I felt like that, and I think it was because I saw my parents. Well, okay, two things. I saw my parents work really hard, like 14-hour days, both of them, and then they, had babysitters, and that's its whole own thing, right? Like, I barely spent time with my actual parents growing up, but there was also the sense that they said, we do so much, like, cut us some slack, be a good kid in school so we don't have to pick you up, and get good grades so you can get out of this situation. Like, you don't have to do this, and all that. And like, again, it's one of those things. Best intentions, it's the right thing. Maybe the way I received it was, this is a lot of pressure, and I've got to be this perfect little kid. So there's also this sense, and shout out to Pastor Alberto, bro. Oh my gosh, the guy's a legend, freaking amazing. He brought up this idea of the Christian Eastern Orthodox way of looking at self. There is the false self and the true self. The true self is the fully accepted, fully loved by God version of you. What does that look like? Could you actually just take a moment and try to imagine that? Try to imagine what you would be, who you would be if you were fully loved and you were fully accepted, you were fully satisfied in God. What does that look like? And for those who don't believe in God, like, just erase that part. What does it look like to be fully accepted, fully known, fully satisfied, fully loved? What does that look like? Right? And this is your true self, right? For me, I imagine someone who's not afraid to express themselves. And I say that because there's a lot of good that I want to express that I think is dorky, which is ridiculous, right? Like, paying people compliments, like, oh, I love those shoes. Oh, your hair is so beautiful, and this and that. But I overthink, and like, well, she's gonna think I'm flirting with him, or flirting with her, or like whatever. Like, maybe they're like, yeah, I know, or whatever. Like, their reaction might be weird, or like I might be weird in delivering. So there's just a lot there, and so I'm like, no, never mind, no. Another thing is just being expressing myself fully, not being ashamed, not being scared, not being worried about anything. I think that's a big thing in my life, but that's because I'm an Enneagram 4, right? So expression is like all I crave for. And with the background, you can kind of see, like, well, I didn't really express myself. I actually joke around a lot. Like, I have so much to say now because I was literally like, not that I couldn't talk, but I wouldn't talk for like the first 20 years of my life. And now I have a lot to say, you know what I mean? And that's not like a villain arc thing. I mean, I want to get into the villain arc thing. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so just imagine that true self. Okay. And then, that is who you were made to be. That is you in your purest form. Okay. What then happens through life? Traumas, bad reactions, fear, anxiety, all of these things start creeping in. And then what does that do? It creates this persona. It creates this false self. It creates this person that adapts to the world you're in, adapts to the dog-eat-dog world that you're in. And that's not who we are. I bring that up, again, I'm going to tell my narrative through the lens of ADHD because I think it fits best with like every facet of my testimony of my life. But if somebody, were to, watch this like a professional and be like, bruh, you ain't got ADHD. Because I know like everyone has ADHD, you know what I mean? Like, and I was talking about this with my parents yesterday. We have just TV on, your phone in your hand, you're listening to people talk around you. That's going to make you like hyperactive, right? It's going to get you bored and this and that, but that you can retrain yourself out of that easily. I think a lot of people can. And this happened in college, actually. We that was our thing. So I had 5 roommates technically sometimes, but we had 4 roommates, and me and this other guy, we would that's what we would do. We would sit down on the couch together. We'd be on our phones. We'd be watching TV, and we'd be talking to each other. And I couldn't focus on anything ever. Like even in school, I couldn't do anything. And he didn't either. But he was like, okay, I'm going to focus, because I don't like. He's like, I don't like this. There's no way that this is like who I'm supposed to be. Like I want to be a focused person and this and that. And so he trained himself for that. So he would be intentional in doing one thing at a time. If it was watching TV, he was only watching TV. If he was listening to music, he was only listening. Well, I think music was a little different, because that is like background music is a thing, right? And background TV, I guess, is a thing too. But because I understand it's just like white noise happening. I get that. But it was just like he would just focus on one thing at a time. And he's like, bro, I could read books now. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, reading a book is insane to me. You're like, oh, how are you so smart? I listen to books. I listen to podcasts, and I absorb a lot of information. I can absorb a lot of information. It's just the method of how I receive information is very important. It's do or die. Like, if it's reading, I might not get it. Okay, I'm getting all over the place, but how I read the Bible, for example, what I used to do is I would write down every verse, so it made me slow down, focus, and then I would give my opinion, express myself, right? Because that's important to me. So expressing myself was like half of the fun. So I would highlight, specific words. I'd say, what that meant to me. I would connect things together and and I did that with most of the New Testament. So like, yeah, there's somewhere out there, just kidding, it's a bunch of notebooks, but there's like not a commentary, not my commentary. I'm not a PhD theologian or whatever, but my thoughts on like mostly every verse in the Bible. In the New Testament, I apologize. Which isn't even true, because I didn't do Revelations, because boy, that's a tricky one. Oh my God, dude. Okay, if you don't believe I have ADHD by now, then you're a hater. No, I'm just kidding. What am I talking about? I am talking about. Nope, I gotta weave, bro. You think Trump weaves? Oh my God. No. Yep, not smart enough to hold on to the weave. What am I? Sorry. Okay, dude, what am I talking about right now?
Wait, hold up. If at any point in this you said, hey, I never thought about it like that, please subscribe. What are you doing, man? I'm trying to pay my bills. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the serious stuff. All right, see it.
Yeah, so expression. Okay, oh my goodness, false self. So I created this persona. Okay. In creating the persona, okay, there was a person in my life that was very, very important to me since I was like a young preteen kid, and this person was very, very important for me for like, let's say a decade, this person, they were the only person I felt that really understood me, right? My parents had their idea of who I was, and they imposed that, right? Like, I went to college to be a physical therapist because they told me, you're so smart, go be a doctor. And I was like, I mean, I don't know what I want to do with my life, so I might as well go be a doctor. And so I went. I'm not a doctor, obviously, no. But I was thinking like, well, the doctor with the least amount of years is a physical therapist, and actually enjoy one-on-ones. So let's do that. Like long-term one-on-ones. So we did that, and then I realized that the system is like just it sodomizes physical therapists, and from every angle. Like, the healthcare system doesn't care, like the insurance does not care about actual treatment. So they're like, hey, your treatment plan is too expensive. And they're like, bro, the guy just got out of rotator cuff surgery. Like, he needs massages. He needs all these things. I need to provide that. And you're like, no. And it's like, all right, well, then I got to change it up. And then the doctors, general physicians who know literally a little bit of everything, which means you know nothing. Oh my God, dude, don't get me started. I'm sorry, and Dr. Mike, I apologize. You're a great guy and you know a lot. You do your research, but let's be honest, not a lot of them do, because they're in it for the money, because there's a system. Well, I mean, maybe because those kids went all the way through with the pressures that I had. Anyways, but yeah, they just, and it's so concentrated in the funnel of knowledge that they understand, because big pharma, I mean, they literally, like, they have a factory of people that push their own products. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, okay, sorry. Dude, I'm talking about me. I'm trying to talk about me. Deflecting. No, not really. It's just nuggets everywhere. Nuggets. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like Rick Glassman with wisdom. Okay, that's a deep cut. But yeah, and then they just crap on physical therapists because, like, they're not a doctor, and it's like, dude, you studied the whole body and everything, but you didn't go into detail in muscles and how nerves interact with the muscles and how, like, the biochemistry of how the muscles work, right? We had to do all that. I took like 7 anatomy classes. I mean, yeah, okay, fine. You took a bunch of classes too, but it's like, if all I focused on was muscles and bones, you would think, right, that I would know a couple things that you don't, right? And so that facet, and then the other facet is public opinion. Maybe at the time, maybe now it's a little different, but it's like, oh, are you a doctor? Yeah, I'm a doctor, but you're not like a doctor. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. It's like, are you crazy? Because I've seen this so many times. Physical therapists just love their job so much. And so they really get into it. They understand, and there's these tests you can do. These tests, not a doctor, a general physician would maybe know like 20% of the tests that you can do to test for broken bones. You can test for torn ligaments. You can torn muscles. There's so many tests that you do, and it's like mechanical tests. So like, if I rotate, if you can't raise your arm to a certain degree, we know, oh, that's one part of the rotator cuff, and this and that, and it's like, there's just that extensive knowledge in their bodies. And so sometimes they come in with, like, I don't know, like, I'm forgetting terms now. It's just because I'm thinking on the spot, but like a broken acetabulum or something. And it's like, and then you do some tests to make sure, and you're patting down, you're doing all these things. You're like, actually, you know what? I actually, I think you just have a tear in your ligament somewhere. And they're like, no, but that's what my doctor said. And then you're like, okay, let me call him. He's like, hey, can we actually get an MRI instead of an X-ray? Like, I think the fracture, like, what you think is a fracture is actually just a torn, like, labrum or whatever the case is. And they're like, actually, I'm the doctor, and so I don't think that's, whatever. And then they go on in pain, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm fixing you for this one thing because I don't know what I'm doing. And so it's ridiculous. Anyways, so yeah, the summer of my junior year of college, I left, and I left a shadowing program. I did it with one of my mentors, like people mentors, and I worked 40 hours a week the whole summer, and I was like, I cannot do this. I don't know how you do it. This is the most disrespectful, like, ungratifying, like, no one gives a crap about you kind of job, like like equivalent to pastor, to be honest, but actually lower. I would say lower at the time, lower than a pastor. It's just rough, dude. So my heart goes out to physical therapists, and so yeah, I gave that up. Why did I bring that up? I don't know, but this person, oh my God, dude, this person that was just understood me. That's why. Because, yeah, the projection of my parents. Okay. This person understood me. understood what I wanted in life, understood my likes and dislikes, understood just everything, my mannerisms, how I thought, how I felt, and we tried to make it work one day. One day we just tried to make it work, and it didn't work because we were selfish teenagers that can't express and communicate. And so we were toxic AF, you know? Yeah, I say that out loud. I actually do. Toxic AF. And so that happened, and it got real messy. But in the falling out, what ended up happening was I spiraled because this was the only person that understood me and loved me. And when we couldn't figure that out, I was thinking, the only person that understands me does not now love me. Now, that's a whole mess, and I won't get into all that because of the other person, to be honest, because, boy, my life is an open book, and maybe if we were one-on-one, I would literally talk to anybody that would keep it off the record, I guess, because what's the point? I'd rather say it myself than you write an article on it. Like, that's crazy. So, point being, that sent me down a spiral. That sent me down a spiral of, if no one has empathy for me, why bother having empathy? And I remember, like, this is the start of my villain arc, because I remember journaling. I journaled a lot back then. I kind of want to journal now. It just takes too long. But honestly, that's like the point. It's for you to slow down with your thoughts and understand what you're going through and all that. But let's back up though. She, they, he, no, just kidding. Obviously a she. We'll get into the sexual aspect in another episode. But I was writing and I found a picture that she put in the notebook as I got there in journaling, and that broke my brain, dude. And like it makes me think of like animes like Hunter x Hunter, maybe My Hero Academia, where like the villain is like, I'm not human anymore, I'm a monster, yeah, my brain broke, dude. And that's the only way I can really like explain it. I feel it in my brain, and I'll get into that. Like, I actually feel my brain a lot. I don't know if that's a normal thing. But like when a dopamine hit happens, when I've been like, I'll have to get into that in another episode too. But I felt my brain breaking. Like it was like splitting. I felt. Yeah, I think I wish I was under an EKG. Is that the right one? EKG for the brain? I don't know. But I think that's just for the heart, I think. Or they both do. Sorry, bro. Anyways, and so or sis. Jeez. Oh my God. Sorry, people. But yeah, it broke my brain, and just from that day on, I felt empty. I felt empty with everything. And honestly, around that time, I was probably like 18, 19. Believe it or not, that was actually my first exposure to pornography, because I was just desperate to fill that hole. And that was another thing, is like all of these characteristics, these things, I wonder if they were always bubbling. They're always bubbling, but I just had that safety net. I had like something to hold on to that kept me from falling to the abyss, kind of deal. You know what I mean? And that's that. Like, I had that one thing left, and that broke. And yeah, that sent me, dude. That sent me. I think the other things I had were like soccer, but then I messed up my back. I blew out my knees. A whole bunch of crap happened, and I was like, well, this isn't gonna happen, And then yeah, I don't know. That's also around the same time I learned piano and got into music. What else? But my brain broke. I didn't have empathy for anyone. Hanging out with people seemed like a hobby, if I can remember correctly. A hobby in the sense like, you go watch a movie, you enjoy yourself, but it's like, all right, the attachment isn't there, video games, whatever the case is, like there's no real connection outside of the experience you're feeling. You leave that experience and it's gone, kind of deal. Uh, and that's how hanging out seemed like to me, to be honest. And I think I said that to someone and they looked at me like, ugh. And I thought that was just the most normal thing. And I was like, no, you feel that too. You just hide it behind this care that you think you have. Like I was like Rick, like Rick and Morty, not Rick Glassman. Oh my God, please. Kindest person ever. Rick and Morty, how he just explains, he explains away love by familiarity and chemicals in your brain and da da da. That was me before it was cool. I also liked Batman before it was cool because he was the only superhero that could kick butt without having powers, and he was just like smart and strong, like achievably. Well, obviously, except for his height, he's like just, I don't know, 6'4" or whatever. And yeah, but yeah. Anyways, bruh, I can't have any fun. No, but I'm all over the place. I'm so sorry. And so I just yeah, my brain broke and I just I didn't care for anything. This led me into going to college with this chip on my shoulder. And to fast forward, because that was my life, right? I didn't care for anyone, and anyone that was convenient to be around, and any girl that was convenient to be with, in terms of like, I didn't have to try too hard. I didn't have to, and that's really what it was. If I didn't have to try too hard, there's this, thing of, I think another thing that like, I thought about a lot now that I'm remembering, I could have been way more manipulative. I was just too lazy and too impatient. Like I had the charm to get anybody to like me, but I was too lazy to put in effort or to keep it up. And people bored me a lot. Like, okay, there's a difference between saying like, oh, I don't like small talk, and saying like, I'm in agony listening to you talk right now because you sound like every other person I've ever talked to before. Like you have no interesting ideas. You don't have an interesting personality. Oh my God. You know, and that's how I thought. It was like, if you don't entertain me in any shape or form, and that's really like the thick of it, the mess of it was, if you don't entertain me, like if you couldn't entertain me physically, emotionally, logically, like, if you can stimulate my brain or stimulate me, you get it. I didn't want anything to do with you. And that was like churn and burn. Like I would talk to people and they'd be like, oh my God, you're kind of cute. And then they would talk a little bit and I'd be like, look, I don't feel it. So one thing I thought I was very virtuous in was that I was super honest. There was no guile. No guile in me. I was a non-lying a-hole. I was a lot of things, but a liar was not one of them. You know what I mean? So I would straight up tell somebody like, hey, look, I don't think this is going to go further because of this, and that. But if you want to mess around, like, that's cool. But I don't care for you that way. 9 out of 10 times, they'd be like, you're a psychopath. I'm out of here. Other times they're like, well, okay, yeah. And then they would try to make me like them and this and that just got messy. And then it also happened the other way around where I'm getting into different stories right now. I'm talking just about my bad brain. Well, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. I'll get into the girls, I guess. And some guy. We'll get there. And then And so the turning point, okay, so that stretched for, a couple years. What happened was I got to a point in my desperation for validation, need for affection, attention. So that need for validation, that need for, like, it just got so intense, right? That I felt myself having to make a choice. Now, this this is where I get different theories than what psychologists have for a lot of things, because I lived through it and I can kind of articulate it. I mean, maybe not as well now, being so far removed from it, and also I think I'm lacking in the articulation department, but whatever, you be the judge. But what happened is that it was like that brain breaking moment, the beginning of my villain arc moment, but it went deeper. The only way I can I can see it, so it's The Boys. Okay, there's this moment where the commander, right? That's his name, I think. The Superman, wannabe guy. He is having this conversation with himself in a mirror, and he's like, it's about killing that humanness in him, the last little bit of humanness that's like squirming in him. And I've kind of felt that. Not that there was anything symbolic for me to do this thing. Maybe I would have to think about it more, but it would take me 5-10 minutes of silence that I could edit. But I don't know. But I just felt myself at this crux where I was, let's say, relieving myself, probably, Wolf of Wall Street style, 7-8 times maybe, whether it was adult videos or people, girls that I was talking to I was a messy man. And it just got to this point where I was like, I think there was like a sense that I cared a little bit of these people to push them away enough or whatever the case was. And then there was this thing of like trying to pull me deeper of like, if you don't care about them, then you can fully get everything you want. Like if you didn't care about anything truly and just went after what you wanted truly, then you can get everything you wanted. And at that moment, I went to therapy. And throughout this whole thing, I was very honest with my Pastor Alberto, and I would share everything. He would go on to tell me later of like, it worked with you in terms of like trying to explain away and explain to you why things shouldn't be the way it is and this and that, because you were so honest. There was, he would disciple maybe, let's say 5 to 10 guys, and let's say 9 of them weren't completely honest. They weren't honest about who they were sleeping with. They weren't honest about the messed up stuff in their heart. They weren't honest about their goals, what they wanted out of life. Like they just weren't 100% honest. And even at that time, I knew that my life was testimony. Like the reason, and that's why it's so important for you to watch the first episode, is I explain that my life, everything that I've gone through, every bad and every good is testimony, because I can look back at it and understand something. And so that's like, I think it's 2 Corinthians 3-4 or something like that, or I quote it, but it's this idea that like the God who comforts me, I can now comfort you with the same wisdom that God has given me. And so there's just ample testimony in my life, like whether it's a bounce back, whether it's I'm down, but now I win, kind of story, or it's like a wise king story, or whatever it is, it's going to end in good. And that's testimony. And that's why, like, I'm raw. I can be raw and naked and vulnerable about what I'm going through now, because I know that one day it won't be. And you get to see the arc, and you get to see, like, everything. When I was a single man and I did not care about anyone, then I would be completely open and, and say everything and spill my guts. Now, there is, like, people have dignity, and that's the irony, right? Is like, you have dignity, and so some things need to be hidden so that you can keep your dignity, but that stuff that's hidden is like part of who you are, and so whatever. But it's about being respectful, and it's about honoring people, right? If I can't take away the power that they have to tell it themselves. I can't make that decision for them, So I understand that. So that makes my life a little harder in terms of, I want to spill my guts all the time, but I can't, right? Because it involves other people and that. Sorry, I keep going back to that because I'm like putting it in my brain. Hey, don't use names. Don't tell stories, I'll probably my mom used to do these letter nights like once a month for a worship, youth group. And she would basically write an anonymous story. Sometimes they were real. Sometimes they were fake. Most of them were fake. But if they were real, she would just change up names and then be like, oh, Jonathan, da 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 da. And then we would think about it. We'd go through it. And then we'd go back to the Bible to do that. To kind of give a godly answer and in wisdom, godly wisdom and all that. But maybe I could do something like that where I change names and I say, oh, my friend or my dad's friend or, whatever. And now you don't know if I'm actually talking about me or not. Although I just said that I would always be talking about me. So, well, actually, no, because sometimes I do want to use other people as examples because I don't have that example, but I think it's a beautiful example, or it taught me something. And because, that's like little brother energy. Like, you learn from other people's mistakes. You don't make the same mistakes, I'm the biggest brother. Oh, I mean, there's only two of us. I'm the bigger brother. So that's definitely my brother's life. He talks about that. See, I just did it. I mean, hopefully that's not a huge thing, but yeah. He's learned a lot from my mistakes, because I made a lot of them. You know what I mean? Because I saw myself as the black lamb, black sheep of the family, for sure. Anyways, so I started going to therapy. My brain was breaking again, and I was like, no, not this time. I can't go deeper than this. Like, I'm already, like, I see the broken trail that I'm leaving behind, the destruction, like the fire that consumes all life that is behind me every step I take. And if to get what I want, to force what I want means more destruction, then I'd rather be unalived, or I don't know, but something needs to change. And so I went to, let me tell you, oh my gosh. So this is my story in my, like, starting therapy. Okay. I went to counseling in the school, right? It's free. I'm never gonna, like, as important as it is, health stuff is very expensive, and I can't afford that, and I won't afford it. So, like, I won't afford it as in, like, even if I had the money, I don't think I would spend on it. But I think it's extremely important. And so I always try to find, free ways to do that, right? And usually in your town, there is some kind of program, even if it's a group session. I know that's uncomfortable, but just listening to people talk can be healing, in that environment. So I don't know, try that. If you don't want to do one-on-ones, or if money's an issue for you too, because that was for me. Okay, so I I'm watching I'm not watching. I sit down to get, like the initial stuff. So it's like a long form where it's like, are you depressed? Are you an alcoholic? Are you this and that? Are you doing drugs? Are you, whatever. And so you fill it out, right? And then you turn it in. You talk to a therapist to kind of gauge like, oh, where should you be, right? Dude, poor girl. So I oh crap. Oh crap, it's time for me to go. No, it's fine. So I decided, so I'm talking to this person, I understand like the essence of therapy. It's like, hey, these are your traumas. We're going to work through your traumas. And then, I don't know, behavior stuff. So I had differential diagnoses prepared. I had key moments in my life. I had, everything in a little notebook ready to give. And so I was like, hey, just read this book. I'm not going to repeat myself 1,000 times. Here you go. And she was like, no, can you just tell me? And I was like, all right, fine. And so I just read off the book, and she was like, well, sometimes life can be hard. And then she was like, I can be, and she gave a little bit of a taste of her counseling or whatever. And to be fair, she was a student counselor. Like, she was still in school. She's in the grad program and this and that. And I think I literally told her, like, this is verbatim, sorry if I cuss. But I said, if you're going to give me, I don't know if I said, well, see, now I'm backing down. Oh, if you give me bull crap cliches like this in our sessions, then find me someone else. It's like, sorry, I need someone smarter than me. I know what I know, essentially. Like, this was the conversation, and I said this straight to her face. I was just desperate for, like, I didn't want to sit in a room and be told what I already knew. And I needed someone, because I've analyzed it. Obviously, me being me, I was me back then. I analyzed every situation, every like the branching of everything. Like, I understood my life in so many narratives and stories, and I tried to, but I was in a loop. I would just go into loops, and I was like, I need something, a new piece of information to break me out of the loop. And so so she was like, obviously very offended, because there is a right way to say that, again, like, and this is like I have remnants of this. There is, you can say the correct thing, but there's a right way to say it, and I'm still practicing that and learning that. But back then I didn't care. Like, again, I didn't care. Right. So that's how I straight up said it that way. And she was like, oh my God. And then, hooked me up with some doctor, and she was dope, man. So when I gave her the notebook, she read the notebook. So she met me where I was, and she went through this and was like, well, why do you think these differential diagnoses? And I was like, look, it's in the book. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I think that kind of happened a little bit, but she was like, no, I get it. But like, why would you think, this ex-girlfriend has anything to do with it and this and that? And I was like, well, she perpetuates, or no, I guess at the time I didn't understand that she perpetuated what I was lacking in my parents, but also perpetuated some aspects of my parents. So yeah, that got me in a long journey. What happened with that? Of like key things that happened was I got to an impasse where my bitterness is what fueled me. My like anger, bitterness, resentment, right? Towards parents, towards the world, towards people, myself, and that's what fueled my art. That's what fueled like how ambitious I was. That fueled how high level I was. The level of functioning I was because I had that chip on my shoulder that I had to prove everyone wrong. And so I asked myself, and the question became, this thing is a poison in my life, but I can't function without it. But who would I be without this thing? I would be nothing. I would cease to exist. My personality hinges on this thing. My identity hinges on this pain. what would I be? So I talked about it with my therapist. I would talk about it with my pastor. He gave me, he introduced me to Shia LaBeouf's personal life, that he's very open about, how he hated his dad, and that's what fueled him. And he said that when he forgave his dad, he had to kind of go through like the same things, and I would just listen to and hear him out, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And it's this idea that you can take out the bad, but then there's a void that's just going to be filled with something else. And so you take out the bad, you got to replace it with good. That's super important. And you take out the bad, you got to replace it with love. You got to replace it with, compassion, acceptance, and all these things. I think for Christians, I think it makes more sense. And I say that because, like, I'm as crazy to think that the whole world hates me, my parents hate me, and I hate myself. That same crazy brain can convince me that I love myself and I'm compassionate and people love me and this and that. What I'm saying is that a thing cannot attribute itself value, right? Logically speaking, like, if I made clocks, I give the clocks value by how well I make it and by how special it is to me. So, but the clock itself cannot give itself value. And I understand that it's inanimate, so it can't do that. But I would say, like, with kids and parents, like, only the parent can know how special this kid is. Right. Other, like Messi, for example, everyone loves him and he's fantastic and like magician and all this stuff, right? As a soccer player, but only his parents knows him because they have that connection. They are a part of each other in such a unique way that we don't have that. And so for them to be like, you're special, not just for the football, but as a person, as my son, you are special. That means something entirely different. So, logically speaking, you can't attribute yourself value, but God can give you value, and He has described our value, and so that's why I think it's very important that you can't fill the good, you can't fill the bad, take out the bad, and fill it with good on your own terms, right? When we go to the Christian Eastern Orthodox view of true self, false self, that true self is determined by how connected you are to God's love.
Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.